Have you ever been rejected by someone you cared about deeply and found yourself questioning your worth? I want you to know that rejection was never a reflection of your value. It was a reflection of their fear. Especially if you were dealing with an avoidant partner, the story is never as simple as they just didn't like you. Often, what they really hope for is exactly what you're afraid to do. They hope you'll chase, beg, or bend yourself into something you're not. Avoidants fear intimacy. They fear vulnerability. And when someone like you shows courage, honesty, and genuine love, it challenges them. So when they pull away or reject you, it's not just about you. It's about them protecting their walls. And here's the truth. The more you try to force them to stay, the stronger those walls become. What an avoidant actually hopes for is your disappearance. Not literally, but your emotional disengagement. They hope that you'll stop caring, stop expecting, and stop showing up in the ways that make you radiant and authentic. Why? Because they're terrified that if you continue to love fully, their fear will be exposed and they'll have to confront it. But here's the empowering part. Rejection doesn't have to be your defeat. It can be your liberation. By stepping back, choosing yourself, and refusing to shrink for someone else's insecurities, you are showing more power than any plea or chase ever could. And in that space, here's what happens. You start to heal, you start to thrive, and you start to magnetize the kind of connection that doesn't ask you to compromise your essence. So the next time someone rejects you, remember this: you are not their fear and you are not their walls. You are a person who deserves someone willing to meet you with openness, courage, and heart. Step into your value, step into your self-respect, and watch as the universe rewards the love you never stop giving. To yourself first. When someone rejects you, especially an avoidant, it's almost instinctive to internalize that rejection as a reflection of your worth. You might find yourself replaying every conversation, analyzing every action, and wondering if you weren't enough, if you didn't do enough, or if there was something fundamentally wrong with you. But the reality is far more revealing than that. Avoidants are not rejecting you because of your flaws. They are reacting to their own internal fears. Their fear isn't about the person you are. It's about the depth of intimacy you offer, the emotional closeness you bring, and the way you reflect back to them the vulnerability they are terrified to face. Your confidence, your openness, your willingness to care deeply can trigger a panic inside them. When an avoidant feels that their defenses might crumble, the easiest and most instinctual response is to withdraw. This withdrawal can feel like rejection, but it's actually a protective mechanism for them. It's their way of keeping themselves safe from the intensity of connection, not a judgment on your value or the quality of your love. The more you understand this, the more your perspective can shift. Instead of seeing their withdrawal as evidence that you are unworthy, you begin to see it as a mirror of their own unresolved patterns. Their actions are dictated by fear, past experiences, and avoidance strategies, not by the truth of your worth or the love you can offer. This realization can be incredibly liberating because it allows you to separate your self-esteem from their behavior. You start to recognize that being rejected by someone avoidant is not a measure of your capabilities, your charm, or your goodness. It is simply a reflection of what they are capable of receiving in that moment. It also changes the way you interact with relationships moving forward. When you understand that their fear is the driving force behind the rejection, you no longer feel compelled to chase validation from them or bend yourself to fit their comfort zone. You can approach relationships with clarity, knowing that your value is inherent and not dependent on whether someone else can handle the depth of your presence. Instead of feeling diminished by their retreat, you see it as a sign to honor your own emotional needs. You can choose to step back, preserve your energy, and focus on connections where vulnerability is met with reciprocity rather than fear. This perspective fosters a sense of empowerment. You realize that rejection doesn't have to sting because it's not about you, it's about the other person's limitations. Understanding this truth helps you cultivate patience and compassion, not for them in the sense of excusing their behavior, but for yourself in resisting the urge to internalize blame. It's a shift from self-criticism to self-awareness, a shift from confusion to clarity. By seeing rejection through the lens of fear rather than inadequacy, you reclaim your confidence and reaffirm the undeniable truth. Your worth exists independently of someone else's capacity to embrace it. When you find yourself drawn to an avoidant, it's easy to fall into the trap of chasing them, thinking that if you try harder, love more, or prove your worth, they will finally open up. This is one of the most common mistakes people make, and it often backfires in ways that feel confusing and painful. The truth is that chasing an avoidant doesn't bring them closer. It often pushes them further away. Their natural instinct is to protect themselves from intimacy, and when they feel pursued, it activates the part of them that believes connection is dangerous. Every call, message, or attempt to engage them can feel like a pressure that threatens their comfort zone. Instead of responding with closeness, they respond with withdrawal. Chasing an avoidant can reinforce the patterns that keep them distant. They start to associate attention and love with discomfort or pressure. Even if they care about you or feel attracted to you, their fear of being vulnerable overrides their desire for connection. This means that no matter how much effort you put into proving yourself, they may continue to pull back. The harder you chase, the stronger their walls become, because from their perspective, staying distant is the safest way to manage the intensity of emotions they aren't ready to process. It's not that your love is too much, it's that their ability to receive it is limited by fear. Understanding this pattern can completely change how you approach relationships with avoidance. Instead of interpreting their withdrawal as a rejection of your love, you can see it as a signal of where they are emotionally. It's not an invitation to chase harder, but an opportunity to step back and preserve your own emotional health. The more you resist the urge to pursue them aggressively, the more space you create for them to confront their own fears, or alternatively, for you to find connections with people who are capable of meeting you with equal vulnerability. This approach isn't about manipulation or trying to teach them a lesson. It's about respecting both their emotional boundaries and your own. Chasing an avoidant often comes from a place of fear of being alone, fear of losing someone you care about, or fear that you won't be loved elsewhere. But the moment you recognize that chasing actually strengthens the very walls you wish they would lower, you can shift your energy. You can redirect it toward building self-confidence, enjoying your life, and nurturing connections that are balanced and reciprocal. The power lies not in persuasion or persistence, but in knowing your worth and refusing to let someone else's fear dictate your emotional state. Ultimately, the more you stop chasing, the more you reclaim control over your life. You stop being at the mercy of their avoidance patterns, and you begin to prioritize relationships where love flows naturally rather than being forced. By stepping back, you create a space where both you and the avoidant have clarity. Either they confront their fear and meet you, or you move on to someone who can fully embrace your presence. Chasing never builds intimacy, respect, patience, and self-worth do. One of the most surprising truths about avoidance is that when they reject you or pull away, what they actually hope for is often the exact opposite of what your heart wants to do. They hope that you will disengage, that you will stop showing up in the ways that make you unique, visible, and vibrant. They hope that your emotional investment will fade, that your desire for connection will dim, and that you will retreat into yourself. This may sound counterintuitive because from the outside it looks like rejection or avoidance, but for them, it's a way to protect their fragile sense of security. When you continue to care deeply, continue to show vulnerability, or continue to express love, it challenges the very defenses they rely on. Your presence, your openness, and your consistency shine a light on their own fears, and that light can feel threatening. Avoidants often struggle with balancing desire and fear. They may want connection, closeness, and intimacy, but the closer someone gets, the louder their internal alarms become. By hoping you step back, they are trying to maintain a sense of safety and control. They want the freedom to feel what they feel without pressure, without the intensity of being fully seen. The harder you push, the more they cling to distance because it reassures them that they are in control. Ironically, what they hope for is not that you stop loving them entirely, but that you stop showing up in ways that force them to face their fear. They hope for disengagement because it preserves their comfort, not because they are indifferent to you as a person. Understanding this can be transformative. When you realize that their rejection is more about their own need to feel safe than about your worth, you can start to see your own choices in a different light. Instead of feeling desperate to break through their walls, you can step back with awareness and intentionality. You can care for yourself and honor your own boundaries while still acknowledging that their actions are a reflection of their internal struggle, not your inadequacy. This shift in perspective allows you to respond with clarity rather than anxiety, with self-respect rather than self-doubt. It also opens the door to healthier relational dynamics. When you stop chasing or trying to force engagement, you give both yourself and them space to breathe. You allow the relationship to exist without coercion or pressure, which paradoxically increases the chances of genuine connection if it is meant to happen. Meanwhile, you are also signaling to yourself that your emotional energy is valuable, that your love is not meant to be begged for, and that your boundaries are non-negotiable. By stepping back intentionally, you are not giving up on love. You are stepping into self-respect, which is far more magnetic and powerful than any attempt to coax someone into intimacy. The key lesson here is that avoidance is never a reflection of your inadequacy. When an avoidant hopes for your disengagement, they are hoping for safety, not rejection of you personally. Recognizing this allows you to reclaim your power, prioritize your emotional health, and approach relationships with clarity, dignity, and a sense of calm confidence. You no longer need to chase what fear is trying to hide. Choosing yourself in the face of rejection is one of the most powerful decisions you can make, especially when dealing with an avoidant. So often people think that love means sacrifice or compromise, that to be loved you must bend to someone else's fears or adjust your needs to fit their comfort zone. But when you step into self-respect, you realize that love does not require diminishing yourself. Refusing to shrink for someone else's insecurities is not an act of arrogance or defiance. It is an act of clarity and empowerment. It's saying to yourself and to the world that your emotional well-being is valuable, that your needs matter, and that you will not be pulled into a dynamic that leaves you depleted. This choice shifts the focus from trying to change someone else to nurturing your own heart, and it is the ultimate form of emotional maturity. When you choose yourself, you reclaim control over your emotional energy. Instead of being at the mercy of someone else's avoidance patterns, you decide how much attention, care, and vulnerability you are willing to invest. This doesn't mean you stop caring about others. It means you stop letting someone else's fear dictate your self-worth or your happiness. It's a form of self-protection that doesn't close you off from love. It simply sets the standard for the type of love you will accept. By prioritizing your own needs, you create a foundation of confidence and stability that is magnetic to people who are capable of matching your level of openness and commitment. Choosing yourself also allows you to break free from cycles of anxiety and second-guessing. When an avoidant withdraws, it's natural to feel compelled to chase, explain, or convince them of your value. But each attempt to persuade them to engage reinforces the imbalance in the relationship, leaving you vulnerable to disappointment and frustration. By standing firm in your self-respect, you no longer feel the need to negotiate your worth or prove yourself. You learn to trust that the right connections will meet you with reciprocity, and that forcing a connection that doesn't honor your boundaries only delays your ability to find a truly fulfilling relationship. There's also a profound sense of liberation that comes with choosing yourself. When you prioritize your own growth, joy, and emotional well-being, you shift the focus from trying to control someone else to taking responsibility for your own life. This shift allows you to engage in relationships with clarity and intention rather than out of fear or desperation. You begin to understand that your love is not dependent on anyone's approval and that your presence is inherently valuable. Ultimately, choosing yourself is about empowerment, dignity, and emotional sovereignty. It's about refusing to be defined by someone else's avoidance or insecurities. It's about stepping into your full potential as a person capable of giving and receiving love freely without compromising your essence. In doing so, you create a life that honors your worth and sets the stage for connections that are authentic, balanced, and deeply fulfilling. By choosing yourself, you demonstrate that love begins with self-respect and that true intimacy can only grow when both people show up fully and fearlessly. Rejection, though painful, can also be one of the most liberating experiences you ever go through. It might not feel like it in the moment, and it often comes with a heavy weight of doubt, confusion, or even sadness. But the truth is that when someone rejects you, especially an avoidant, it opens a door to clarity and freedom that you might not have realized was available. Rejection forces you to look inward, to examine what you truly need, what you truly deserve, and how much of your energy and love you are willing to invest in someone who can meet you halfway. Instead of viewing rejection as the end, it can be reframed as a turning point, a moment of awakening where you realize that your love is far too valuable to be wasted on someone who isn't ready or capable of receiving it fully. When you step back after rejection, you start to understand that walking away is not a failure. It's an act of courage. It takes immense strength to let go of someone you care about deeply, especially when your instinct tells you to fight for their love or to try harder. But in that moment, when you choose yourself, you are making a statement that your happiness, your emotional health, and your self-respect matter more than the fear of being alone or the desire to control someone else's feelings. This is empowerment at its purest form because it's a choice that prioritizes your own life over another person's avoidance or fear. Rejection can also create space for growth and self-discovery. When someone steps away, it leaves room for you to reconnect with your own values, desires, and passions. You can reflect on what kind of relationship truly nourishes you and what boundaries are non-negotiable. Instead of compromising your essence to fit someone else's limitations, you begin to cultivate connections that are authentic and reciprocal. You learn that true love doesn't require begging, pleading, or chasing. It flows naturally between people who are equally willing to show up and be seen. This awareness transforms the way you approach relationships, helping you to recognize patterns, make wiser choices, and protect yourself from emotional depletion. There's also a magnetic power in walking away with dignity. People are drawn to those who respect themselves, who maintain their boundaries, and who refuse to settle for less than they deserve. By stepping back after rejection, you signal that your love is not conditional, that you will not chase approval, and that you value yourself too much to invest in one-sided dynamics. This act of self-respect doesn't just change how others see you, it changes how you see yourself. It allows you to reclaim your confidence, your sense of worth, and your ability to engage in life fully without being weighed down by someone else's avoidance. Ultimately, rejection can be the beginning of something far greater than what was lost. It can be the catalyst for attracting connections that honor your value, for building emotional resilience, and for learning to love yourself unapologetically. When you embrace rejection as liberation rather than defeat, you step into a life where love is mutual, fulfilling, and aligned with your true worth. It's not the end, it's the start of choosing the love and life you truly deserve, and that choice is one of the most powerful acts you can ever make. In closing, remember that rejection, especially from someone avoidant, is never a measure of your worth. It is a reflection of their fear, not your value. By stepping back, choosing yourself, and honoring your own boundaries, you reclaim your power, cultivate self-respect, and open the door to love that is genuine and reciprocal. Embrace your journey, trust in your own growth, and know that the right connections will meet you fully, without compromise. Thank you all for taking the time to listen, for valuing your own worth, and for being courageous enough to choose yourself every single day.